Hello, everyone. I'm Jan Twombly, president of the Rhythm of Business and also a member of the ASAP Board of Directors. I'm joined here today by Jeff Schuman, my business partner and professor
Hello.
emeritus at Bentley University. And today we're going to bring you the Alliance Management Mashup, Bridging the Digital Divide. Let me pull my slides up here and we will get going. Put them into the show mode. Okay. If you don't know who we are, the Rhythm of Business works with companies across industries to embed the mindset, skill set, and tool set of partnering and alliance management into all aspects of your business. We're longtime members of ASAP, and we're thrilled to be participating in this, our first digital conference. Let's dive into things here. Our objectives today, we want to present the opportunity digital health represents for alliance managers. We want to introduce technology and biopharma alliance managers to each other's world and examine what it takes to bridge the digital divide between tech and biopharma. First, let's look at some of the underlying assumptions of digital health and why it's such a hot topic today. It has the potential to improve the health of millions of patients and really change the way health services are delivered because it helps to focus on prevention versus treatment. And it really reimagines the patient-provider relationship. And it's much better at involving patients in the development of personalized health solutions than some of the things that we may have seen previously. When we think about it from a business standpoint, it gives infotech companies an exciting market that was worth $96 billion in 2018 and is projected to be about $510 billion by 2026. And for pharma companies, for biopharma companies, digital technologies help them innovate new products and services to engage better with patients, providers, and payers, and really just operate their business more effectively. The ecosystem is large and maturing, but it's not new. Digital health has actually been around for some time. I mean, I'm sure everybody has used WebMD in the past year, particularly in the midst of this pandemic. WebMD started in 1996. It was one of the first .coms that really grew to any scale. And when you think about electronic medical records, they've been around since the 1970s. Some people even say the 60s. But lately, with the advent of the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, we're really seeing that the digital health ecosystem has been growing significantly. And a couple of the developments lately that are really fascinating is the advent of digital therapeutics. That's software as medicine. And it's being used primarily in things that are related to behavioral health, but there are other applications for it as well. And we're seeing an increase in virtual clinical trials. And those are clinical trials where some aspect of patient recruitment, dosing, data collection is being done digitally. So let's take a look at some of the numbers here, really, so you can see what I mean in terms of the explosion of it. In 2019, there was 7.4 billion of investment in the sector. 6 IPOs that were worth 17 billion in total, over 100 acquisitions of smaller companies. Other big milestones, you got the market authorization for novel products such as the first digital therapeutic in oncology. Prior, most of them had been in neuroscience, but we have one to help patients manage their symptoms in oncology. There's also been new industry groups that have been launched, notably the Digital Therapeutics Alliance. And prestigious scientific journals such as Nature and Lancet have launched journals that are focused just on the digital therapeutics. So clearly this marketplace is exploding. And it's a really exciting one for alliance managers as well. There's been lots of innovation that's come about. And some of it has come from some of the giant tech companies, like, for example, Flextronics, now known as Flex, which is a major electronics manufacturer. They spun off a company called Bright Insights that has done alliances with AstraZeneca, with Novo Nordisk, I think with Roche, really to be able to develop new innovative products. Right? You can see some of these alliances on my next slide. Let me get there. There we go. What they have in common is that they're all data driven. They're either helping biopharma companies collect what's known as real world evidence, or RWE, which is critical to being able to maintain pricing, to drive market share, and sometimes even to get approval. Or else they're using data together with artificial intelligence to help facilitate and to drive really, early drug discovery, early drug development. The other thing that they have in common is that they pair big pharma, an industry that's not known for speed and has been considered a digital laggard, with tech companies, some traditional, some new in this digital health area, and both big and small. They're really very, very different industries. And alliance management has always been all about bridging differences. Here, as we're looking at this exciting field and bringing together technology and biopharma, there's lots of differences to be bridged. So Jeff, would you help us take a closer look at some of these differences, please?
Sure. So if we look at tech and biopharma, clearly we're dealing with two innovative industries. However, they innovate very differently. In the tech side, it's an iterative, agile product development process, whereas in biopharma, it's methodical, waterfall development. Although some biopharma companies are adopting agile techniques and work on the coronavirus vaccine is being done in an accelerated manner. Secondly, rapid development timelines in tech contrasted with long development timelines. And for the tech folks listening, typical biopharma development, as I'm sure you've heard in the news over the last several weeks, that can be very long timelines, as much as a decade to get some niche products out into commercialization. Widely quoted methodologies say that it's more than $2 billion to develop a drug when failures are taken into consideration. By one measure, only 1 in 5,000 drug candidates really enter development and make it to the market. As Mark Zuckerberg has said, you need to move fast and break things. That may help promote innovation, but it's not a good principle when people's health and lives are at stake. So biopharma plays to the mantra of do no harm and safety first, and has rigorous safety and quality processes. Tech is code and mobile first. Biopharma is very complex manufacturing, highly customized for each drug and drug formulation, often requiring a dedicated cold chain to get from factory to patient. And tech has minimal regulatory concerns, whereas, again, as you probably heard, biopharma has heavily regulated. Digital health is breaking new regulatory paths, and while biopharma may have minimal experience with the specific pathways, they have process, procedure, and professionals to work on those pathways. So not only are these industries different with respect to innovation, they're really different with respect to going to market. Increasingly in the tech world, they're solution focused, whereas in biopharma, primarily product focused. Although some biopharma companies are moving to a frame of prevention, not just cure, which is more solution focused. In tech world, they sell with and through co-selling a new muscle, and biopharma, significant co-promotion and co-marketing on a global scale. Tech works with system integrators or distributors bringing multiple products together for the customer, whereas in biopharma, it's a co-development is the typical norm. And is largely through SIs or in some instances distributors that customers can buy integrated solutions. In biopharma, however, patients have to buy from their pharmacy or provider products that have been co-developed. You want to embed technologies, OEM, in some instances, and other products in white label. And the biopharma world, we're really increasingly dealing with combination therapies. State of the art in new technology go to market is a rubric known as land, adopt, expand, and renew, reflecting the subscription nature of the SaaS business model. Interestingly, in biopharma, where subscriptions are the norm, the go to market is largely embodied in a product based life cycle management adjacencies in the form of new indications and new formulations. And tech and biopharma partner differently as well. And we can see here that, tech companies are structured partner programs based on focus or efforts. Biopharma that individually negotiated alliances or partnerships may or may not have a contract other than the terms of the partner program in the tech world, whereas in biopharma, it's a detailed long-term contracts and sub-agreements. In tech, there are lots of partners doing very similar things. And biopharma, each alliance really is unique to a great extent. Tech, they build the stack through APIs. In biopharma, they license individual assets. And traditionally, either get or go to market in the tech world. And in biopharma, they partner from research to commercialization. So we see that with respect to innovation, how they go to market and how they really collaborate, there are very significant differences. And therefore, there's really no wonder that biopharma alliance managers and tech alliance managers have very different jobs. On the tech side, they're focused on driving revenue. On biopharma, alliance managers may have some responsibility for revenue and commercial alliances, but primarily it is about maximizing all kinds of value, a step removed from direct revenue generation, and importantly, minimizing risk that can destroy expected value. In tech, alliance managers have a business development responsibility to create new revenue generating opportunities. In biopharma, that is a separate function. New largely relates to recognizing and negotiating when a contract needs to be amended to address changes in the business environment or a new agreement, such as a new supply agreement that must be negotiated. Tech alliance managers have to work to gain commitment and resources, whereas biopharma commitments are contractual, and the task is to ensure that executives have all the data they need to make smart decisions about how those resources are deployed. Given the distributed nature of tech alliance management, these folks need to actively engage field sales so that they take up the alliance solution in the marketplace. In biopharma, the field doesn't have a choice. The role of alliance manager is to ensure that the right decisions are timely made through the governance process. And finally, in alliance managers rather, they build out the partnering ecosystem, adding partners that will further the company's strategy. This is not an alliance manager's job in biopharma. When they think about ecosystem, they are largely thinking about ensuring they honor IP restrictions and boundaries that are included in those contracts. So we see that the worlds are very, very different, although increasingly we see that they're coming together and dealing with that. So the question is really, how do you do that? How do you bridge the differences to create new value? Digital health is the perfect mashup of tech and biopharma, and an opportunity for alliance professionals to demonstrate how they bridge differences to create new value for customers, that is patients, as well as for providers and payers in this case, as well as for partners. Jan is now going to take us through a case study that has been abstracted from a real alliance to examine how tech and biopharma alliance managers can bridge the digital divide. So Jan?
Thanks, Jeff. So let's take a look at this digital health case study. And as Jeff said, this does represent a real alliance. It's between a tech company and a traditional big pharma company. The pharma company will leverage the tech company's Internet of Things platform to co-develop digital products, both apps and devices, and collect real-world evidence. The partners will co-commercialize the digital products as non-exclusive companions to the related pharmaceutical therapeutic. And the digital products are intended to help patients manage symptoms related to their therapy and help them communicate with their care team. Patients will get a personalized care plan that will help them really manage their symptoms and manage their disease. Okay, so let's take a look and analyze this. So we start with the value assumption. The value assumption is the intersection of the new value created for the customer and the partners, which can only be created and only exist because you do indeed have an alliance. Let's take a look at what that likely is in this situation. For customers, you've got three kinds. You've got patients, the applications will help them better manage their disease. For providers, they're going to get data that helps them give better care to their patients. And payers will have the real world evidence. And again, that's evidence that's generated outside of clinical trials in real patients of the efficacy of the therapy. So it helps them justify that they have it on formulary or that they're giving it a certain level of reimbursement. For the technology company, well, it's got an IoT platform. And as with any platform, the value of it will increase based upon the number of products connected to it. When you look at the biopharma company, it gets that real world evidence to provide the benefits that we've been talking about. It helps drive patient adherence. So patients stay on their medications, stay on their therapy. Obviously, that leads to more sales, but it also leads to providing better outcomes to patients. They get faster time to market because they don't have to develop this expertise themselves. They're using a partner to help create the digital applications and devices, and they access that expertise that the technology company has that they don't. A lot of technology professionals, don't necessarily think about biopharma as a place where they can really apply their skills, although that is starting to change. So that's our value assumption. Now let's take a look at what the likely alliance business model is. And the business model is how the alliance is going to create, deliver, and capture value through the economic model, the operating framework, and the governance process. The economic model is really different than what biopharma companies are used to, but it's probably shaped up something like this. It's the software subscription that's being paid for by the biopharma company to the tech company. And then as we saw, they're going to co-commercialize this, not all that different from the way a lot of diagnostic agreements are going. So there'll be a revenue share from the tech company to biopharma, back to biopharma when these devices get marketed. And the tech company will put dedicated resources onto this particular alliance so that the products do get developed and the biopharma company gets the guidance that it needs. The operating framework, let's assume we've got a joint development project team, but they're going to go to market independently. Governance process, joint steering committee for strategic oversight, but each party is going to make their own decisions primarily about what they want in the device for the pharma company, what it's going to do, what it's intended to produce as outcomes, and they'll work with the technology company to produce that. The tech company will decide how that is actually realized on its platform and then how they're going to take their platform to market. The collaboration, well, what's really going to be important is that they align on intended outcomes, the regulatory pathway, the decision-making processes, and the go-to-market messaging.
So Jan, this is an interesting business model you put forward, but clearly there are going to be some challenges that are inherent in this model. Could you elaborate a little bit on what some of those challenges might be?
Yeah, sure. So there are going to be challenges for sure. Like I said, this is an economic model that is a little bit different to what a biopharma company is traditionally used to. So it might be hard to get the right level of engagement. They typically see a technology company as a vendor. And so it may be challenging for them to think about things from the standpoint of using software to develop a product rather than just using it in their business. And nor are they used to having a technology company make something that they're developing for their own use available to other companies as well. The organization structures will probably be a challenge, that operating model. When you've got two biopharma companies, even if one's a small biotech and one's a big pharma, or you've got two technology companies, you pretty much have the same functions. So you know who to invite, you know who to work with for what. Here, the structures are very different, and you're not going to have the same titles, you're not going to have the same functions. So it may be challenging to engage in stakeholder mapping and just getting the right people in the meetings. So Jeff mentioned earlier about the focus in biopharma on safety and quality. That's really not part of the tech operating focus, but yet it's, extremely important within biopharma. So there will need to be a lot of education that's done, and a lot of understanding and explaining from the biopharma company to the tech company. And the tech company may indeed have to adapt some of its procedures. The good news is that there are more and more of these agreements, so companies are starting to get used to them. And there are new regulatory pathways that are being developed. But regulation is still new to technology companies, and the regulation of digital health products is new for all. So one of the benefits of partnering for the technology company is it can rely on the expertise of the biopharma company and its relationships with regulators to be able to drive that. So, really, they should be in the lead when it comes to determining what the regulatory pathway is going to be and in driving that through. Also, when we think about the governance model, Biopharma Alliance governance is bureaucratic, and governance through committee does not work all that well in a lean tech company. So this is actually good news because it gives the biopharma company and the alliance managers a chance to be able to maybe try some new lighter governance. Maybe you meet less for less time, but more frequently. I know some of that's starting to happen in this new environment anyways, but it does give you an opportunity to experiment in how you make your governance more agile. Also, trust building and developing understanding must be really intentional and worked as a muscle. We have lots of differences here. We can have the tendency to perhaps not pay as much attention to something like this because it doesn't seem like it's a typical partnership, but we really do have to be intentional and work at developing understanding and building the muscle. So Jeff, those are some of the challenges that I think that the alliance managers will have in really bridging the divide. So let's take a look at how they should work together to bridge those differences. We start with really applying our alliance management foundation. And this is something that looks at the alliance from the standpoint of the core focus of alliance management is to drive value and to make sure that we're managing risk. And then we look at the fact that you're doing that within the context of your company's strategy, culture, and ecosystem. And then when we dig into what the alliance managers are focusing on and how they can help bridge this divide, we look at leadership. And really, this is the perfect place where the alliance professionals need to build a third way. They need to think about what's the right way to do things that will work for both of their companies. And they have to work at maintaining that organizational commitment all the way through. They really have to champion each other and help their stakeholders internally understand why this alliance makes sense, why they're in it, what the value is that they're going to get, and help work them through some of the challenges of being in something new. When it comes to collaboration, they really need to make sure they're convening the right people, understanding how those organizations work and who needs to be at which table. They have to really focus on listening to understand, making sure that you have common language with shared meaning that will then allow you to leverage each other's strengths and really get the benefit that you hope for out of this particular alliance. When it comes to the governance, number one top thing to do, make sure you're transparent about your decision-making process. That this is good advice in any alliance, but when we're thinking about companies that are very different, you really want your partner to understand the decision-making process that you're going to follow. Rigorous stakeholder management will be required. There may be new decision pathways that have to be crafted in your organization, new people that have to sign off. And really importantly, you want to make sure that you align on evidence standards so that the biopharma company is comfortable with the regulatory pathways, and so that the technology company is able to produce the data that's needed in order to pave that pathway. And then finally, when it comes to the outcomes that we're seeking, right? I mean, these are the four components of the foundation that are really within the realm of the alliance manager to guide. Make sure you're aligning on a North Star. Know what it is that you are trying to produce. Know what the outcome is that you want from this partnership, and keep everybody focused on achieving it. Having a North Star is one of the best ways in which you can ensure that people are aligned, that they are making decisions with the right priorities in mind, and that you're moving in the right direction. And it helps to make sure that you've agreed to milestones and metrics. And you want to make sure that you make status against plans visible to all. Visibility, transparency are really important in these types of relationships we've found. And then there's the cultural aspects. We can never overlook this because, as we all know, culture eats strategy for lunch. Um, but assume the best intentions, right? You want this to work. Everybody wants it to work, but we're going to work at building trust. One of the things that's really important is to speak up when something just is not going to work in your environment, but provide alternatives. Don't just say that's not going to work. Explain your world visually when you can. Draw pictures, draw diagrams of how things work in your company so that it's really explicit and everybody can understand it. Celebrate success, learn from mistakes, and don't forget to pay attention to the elephant in the room. When you practice good alliance management techniques, you can bridge that divide, and you can make sure that you're going to build a culture that will support developing digital apps and digital products. So let me leave you with some tips and traps here. Tips: take the time to develop understanding of how each partner innovates, goes to market, and what partnership looks like for them. Understand your counterpart's focus. What's their job? What are their core responsibilities? They very likely are not the same as yours. Use the Alliance Management Foundation to help you and your counterpart decide how to work together to bridge differences. Right? It'll give you a common baseline that you can work from. Traps, allowing stakeholders to think that a digital partnership is just like all the others that they've worked in and that they can just do things the way they've always done. That's not going to work. You're really going to have to adapt new behaviors, new ways of looking at things. And you need to make sure that each party is really appreciating and leveraging the core strengths each brings to the alliance. You're forging, really a new and evolved industry. And things are different. And we really have to recognize that and recognize the strengths each has, going back to the very basics of why we partner to begin with. And you don't want to fail to be a champion for your partner. Right? The promise of digital health is significant for both technology and biopharma companies, never mind the patients. So we want to make sure that we champion each other and allow these new therapies, these new applications, new ways of developing drugs to thrive. So don't forget, you are partners because you are different. And together you can innovate, create value, and learn new stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed this Alliance Management Mashup. Hopefully you've learned a little bit from it. We're happy to talk to you offline about some of the things that we're experiencing and working on. And you can always go to our website, rhythmofbusiness.com, and click on the Insights tab, where you'll find our recent publications, our blogs, our papers. There's one here on collaboration that's got a number of excerpts from our blog. And then also another paper, The Demand for Alliance Management Has Changed, Are You Ready? But there's many more on our website as well. If we were doing this live, we'd tell you to meet us at our table in the Alliance Management Resource Center. But for today, we'll direct you to our website. So with that, I want to thank you and wish you a wonderful day.